So I don't want to get too broad with this, but
Yeah.
I do think that we're approaching a time in Destiny's kind of life cycle where we're gonna have to start taking a hard look at some of these events and saying, all right, what ones are nostalgic? What events do people really enjoy like for the activities or whatever we're doing itself? And what do we need to revamp? So there are some of these seasonal events that we definitely need to just nuke and repave and start over and do something different with. But then look at some of these, like maybe it's the dawning as a whole. Like, do players really enjoy doing the same activities over and over each year? I think we really need to look at all these seasonal activities through a lens and decide, because at some point these are going to start getting old.
One thing that I do like about the events in Destiny is, yes, they're tied to our real holidays, such as like Crimson Days and the Festival of the Lost and the Dawning. Like those are obviously tied to, Valentine's Day, Halloween, and Christmas, respectively. I like those because it allows those to exist in there without it feeling hokey, because they have established those as actual holidays in the game world, and there's actual lore behind those. That's why I think I enjoy the most. And to be fair, those are the three original. I think that's why they're so fleshed out. Those carried over from Destiny 1. Crimson Days has already been put on ice because they acknowledged it was stale.
I don't think I've ever played a Crimson Days and actually did anything with it.
I play it for about an hour each year to get the loot. I hadn't played it in a couple years, so I'm glad I did it last year, though, to earn everything, since there were exotic ornaments tied to it and everything else, since they now have put it on ice and everything presumably associated with it is now on ice. I'm glad I went ahead and did it, but that was one that really needed to be reworked. Had Guardian games not been reworked, at least on paper, it sounds great right now, you would have heard screaming from this community. Even when we heard it was coming back, we were like, oh God, here we go again. Today, I think it took away a lot of our fears as an overall community that, okay, thank God, this is not going to mar arguably one of the best 2 or 3 seasons we've had since the Forsaken relaunch. For me, it's pretty inarguable. This Chosen is up there with Arrivals and Opulence.
I think that the community is going to find a way to complain.
Oh, they absolutely are. Give
it
48 hours into the event, and they'll be bitching and moaning. I've had to start tuning out so many of the Twitter threads and the Reddit threads, because all it is just negativity. And it's like this with every online game. Like, you and I have been watching the ongoing Outriders just fiasco, and I never thought that a community could make the Destiny community look tame, but here we are.
Well, I think there's definitely some crossover there. I think a lot of the Destiny community, especially the disenchanted, the disheartened people in the Destiny community are sort of looking for another home right now, and I think they're in the Outriders community, and you can kind of see some of the parallels there.
For sure. I think the next one that really needs to go on ice, if they don't completely revamp it this year, frankly, is Festival of the Lost. Festival of the Lost needs to take a nice long break, because I cannot go back to the Haunted Forest again. I barely played the event last year. I was one of the ones who bitched and moaned about it. I was like, this is terrible. I've done this now 3 years in a row. I'm tired of it. Like, if you give us a space like that, I'm fine with you doing it 2 years in a row. Maybe you change it up a little in the second year. By the third year, that's given you 2 full years of data and of feedback. You need to change it by then.
Yeah, I think they kind of put themselves in a bad situation where they had to really lean on Festival of the Lost unexpectedly this year.
They did.
And I think it was one of the worst possible events for them to have to lean on, because it was already very grindy as it was. We'd already done it a couple seasons ahead of that. The loot was never very didn't really inspire people to do a lot of content there. So I agree with you 100%. I think they've got to tear Festival of the Lost down and completely rebuild it. And if they don't, I will 190% skip it this year completely.
It was really disheartening, though, after seeing how they changed up the solstice event over the summer and how good Moments of Triumph was, encouraging you to go do all these raids and all these dungeons and these activities. It was really disheartening to see that no, Festival of the Lost is going to be exactly the same bullshit that we've dealt with for a couple of years. Like, there was a really cool armor set associated with it that you could get for each class, but you had to buy it. Like, you couldn't even earn it. Like, keep coming back to this thing of we want to earn the reward, the cool stuff, rather than have to buy it in Eververse. And I think that's a difficult line for developers to toe, because you want to have things that people got to go buy. Like, the really wacky shit, I understand. Like, the tennis ball ghost, don't give me that. Make me go buy that, please. Like,
I guess I don't understand why it can't go both ways. Why you can't have it both available in the Eververse to purchase, and also have it available to grind for. Because, like, I'll be honest, like, what I like about some other games out there. What game did I do it with most recently? I think it was with Fallout 76. I got to nearly to the end of their seasonal card. And I just want to finish the season pass and be done with it. So I bought like the last 5 ranks that I needed. Like, if
they let you do that on the season pass here.
I agree, I know, but I'm talking about with like armor sets and stuff. Like, if I decide that I want to come in and just like buy the armor sets, I don't want to grind it. Like, I want to do that. I want the option to do that. But if you shouldn't also inflict that on everybody. Like, some people don't have the money. Some people just, they have a hard stance against microtransactions. Have it both ways. I don't see any harm in having it both ways, right?
I think it's an instance of just wanting to make the money. And it's one of those situations where it's like, I don't blame them, but I also don't like it, because I'm pretty anti-microtransaction myself. I'm one of those, like, I try to keep myself to only buying at most one thing per season with actual money. Because, like, for me, it's like, okay, I already spend money on the expansion and on the season pass every year, right? I don't want to buy everything in the store.
I think they should do it for one season and see how it really hurts their bottom line.
Yeah.
And experiment with it. And to certainly, don't use the season that you really count on that microtransaction income. Like,
I feel like Guardian Games would have been a perfect testing ground for this.
I think you're probably right, because rather than, like, if there were a couple choice pieces that I probably would have bought from the store and probably just skipped Guardian Games altogether.
I would have too. And I think they kind of know that. Like, I would have 100% bought the cloak and just been like, fuck this, I'm not touching this event.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think really needs to change, so they've put Crimson Days on ice, but I think they're really trying to, with this new release schedule, it feels like they're trying to make sure they get a seasonal event in probably at the end of each season or close to the end of it. So, I mean, if you assume that, hypothetically, a new season starts in January, okay, you can have at the end of March, move Guardian Games up to the end of March, for example. You can have the solstice at the end of that second season, right in the middle of summer, right as you would, and like Moments of Triumph is probably going to move to the Christmas season, honestly. But you have solstice at the end of summer, and then at the end of the next one, you'd be getting ready to move Festival of the Lost up a little bit, have it overlap between seasons if you have to. And then you've got the Dawning to close out the year with Moments of Triumph. I think that there's a really, really good strategy here, and I feel like that's what Bungie's trying to angle for. I want to say, with regards to revamping these activities, though, we can say this all year long, like, oh my god, you got to redo this activity, redo it. I would rather the resources, if they need them for the actual game or for the actual seasonal content I'm paying for, I would rather it be there than on a Halloween event or on a Christmas event. I would rather development time, art design, etc., go into the actual season. Like, I want seasons like Season of the Chosen every time. I want banger seasons. I would infinitely rather have that than some tacked on seasonal event because you want microtransactions, the event,
I agree with you. I think it's a weird challenge, because those seasonal events are often, and there's a reason why they're at the end of every season. It's to lure players back in and stretch that play time just a little bit longer than
works
probably
for me.
what it would be.
Works on me.
It does. I think I agree with you, and I think Season of the Chosen and Arrivals have really been like two seasons that we've seen them push the boundaries of what they can do with a narrative season, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I would really like to see some of that spill over into the seasonal activity because, like, I'm sorry, it's the seasonal event. The seasonal events always feel very disjointed, and I've always had a problem with like. I've always had a problem with like when Season of Arrivals, for example, we're literally watching the fucking darkness encroach on us, and we know that they're going to attack a couple planets in our system, and then we go play games and you know do Solstice of Heroes and stuff like that. Like it always feels a little disjointed to me. I think there's maybe some tie-ins that they could do to work on that, but I think generally I agree with you. I'd rather have a really good narrative season rather than a good seasonal event.
The one I will die on this hill of that I would like to see every year is the Solstice. I think Solstice is the one thing that the loot, for me at least, the armor sets feel rewarding. They look good with them being universal ornaments now or being able to be transmogged. I think that's important. The Solstice armor this last year, with the cracks and the light coming through, is awesome. I love that armor.
Have a love-hate affinity for Solstice. And I would argue that it needs more, as much of a refresh as Festival of the Lost does, maybe a little less. And here's why. I'm going to go on a little tangent here. Solstice of Heroes, if you've only played one, maybe two rounds of it, it's not bad. It's unique. The armor is oft, like you said, often very great. The tower is decorated. Like there's a bunch of cool stuff. It's got a nice progression. You start with one gear set, you have to power it up. Then you get the next gear set and you have to power it up. All the challenges are unique. But God, that is a grind. And it has been a grind, and they've made it a little bit better. But if you've done it every single year, and I guess I don't have to do that. I'm a sweaty, no-life gamer who's done it. It does get really annoying. Like this year, I didn't finish Solstice because I got to my last armor set and I was like, I just can't do this another season. I can't do this another summer. Like I can't grind 50 strikes to do this and do this thing.
I felt that. I really felt that because I says if the armor looks exactly the same as it has the last 2 years, I'm not doing it. And then for me, it did a complete 180 this year. I loved the armor set. It was still a slog. I still did not finish the entire final armor set. But once you have the legendary armor, you can finish it whenever, I believe. Like I could even go do it now if I wanted to. It's just a matter of I really don't want to. I just want to like get it made as ornaments and be done with it. But I think that's a good example of the armor's earnable in the event. The thing that they sold was the glow. And I cannot describe to you how much I hate armor glows. So it was perfect for me to not spend any money on it. But
you and I have the exact opposite mentality on it. I'm like, if I've grinded for 24 hours on this armor, I'm gonna buy the damn glow.
Yeah, no, fuck that. Because I know me, like I'm gonna look at the armor, I'm gonna wear it for a couple weeks because usually a new expansion is on the way. Had it ended on the ending of Arrivals and the ending of how Solstice and Moments of Triumph all came together, that would have been the best lead into an expansion we've ever had. Ever. And I think that's what Bungie's going for, is they want those moments. But like they pitch the Dawning every year as this time for us to reflect on what's happened in the previous year and this and that. And I feel like that's kind of a natural point for you to close out, because it usually goes in like the first week of January. Let that happen. You know, maybe push it back a little bit. Start it at Christmas and like end it with the next expansion. I don't know. I think that there's plenty you can do here, but you need to be revamping one or two of these a year. And I don't think there's anything wrong with. God, I know I'm like forming a summoning circle here. I never cared for it in Destiny 1, but everybody is asking for it to return. I think it would be something that desperately needs to happen, could be a lot of fun. I don't know how many resources have to go into doing this. Bring back Sparrow Racing League in place of one of these events.
I love that concept. As somebody who didn't play Sparrow Racing League in Destiny 1. When I came into Destiny 1, it was either over or maybe you were still able to do it and nobody did it anymore. I can't remember.
It was always at a super inconvenient time. It was in the spring when
Yeah.
nobody was playing because we'd gone without content drops for like 8 months at this point.
I think even if you bring it back one time, I don't think it would hurt. Yeah, I get it. Like that requires development, and that's time you're doing something and you're not doing something else. But I think it would be good to see what that event could do, even if it's just one time.
I think they know the demand is there at this point. Like for me, the armor for Guardian games this year really feels like a subtle nod to Guardian or to Sparrow Racing League. It feels like they know. And this is kind of like a lot of the armor sets in Eververse tend to be like wink, wink, nudge, nudge towards future things. Like we had the whole Izanagi set last season, and now Ada's coming back into the storyline and will be the transmog vendor, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like maybe I'm reading too much into it. Those look like fucking tracksuits, though. Those look like the racing suits from SRL.
So what if, man, I'm thinking about like, I'm kind of going back and thinking about revamping Guardian games and stuff. Like, what if Guardian games was revamped at some point and they actually had like different events for different Guardian competencies, so to speak? Like, what if there was a Sparrow Racing was an event in Guardian games, or like then there's like marksmanship where you have to like complete a specific strike where you only do damage on like headshots or something. Like what if there were actually like types of events within that rather than just like grinding out laurels and doing strikes and blah blah blah?
Yeah, I like that idea too. Like make it like an actual Olympic thing. Like you only heal by sprinting. Or something along those lines. Like you have wacky modifiers. Like
man.
Or sprinting gives you an overshield. I don't know.
Bring back a gauntlet like type thing where you have to run a race against other classes or against other people of your class.
I want Shaxx narrating it though if you do it.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, having like Shaxx narrating everything and having maybe like, Saint kind of competing against him. It'd be so cool. It would be super cool to do that in a more like Olympic fashion rather than just like grinding the same playlist over and over.
Right. I don't know. I feel like this is a step in the right direction. Obviously, we're going to need to play the event to know. But the last thing I'd like to say that I think they need to bring back, and I'd love to see this infused with Moments of Triumph or with Solstice in the future. I don't know. Maybe you could split it between those. The Age of Triumph from the end of Rise of Iron leading into Destiny 2, when you can go back and do all the Destiny 1 raids, get brand new armor sets and armor ornaments. Those are universally considered to be some of the coolest looking armor sets of all time in this series. And I'm inclined to agree. I think they looked really, really awesome. It gave you reasons to go back and do these raids. I think you need incentives like this to get people to go back and do things. Like, for example, not many people want to do Last Wish or Garden anymore. You could add those to it to get them back in there. Even when they did the ornaments for the Leviathan raids, nobody really gave a shit because they didn't look that different. It just made your armor gold. Who cares? Like
and glow.
The holographic glows coming off of that the Destiny 1 Age of Triumph armor, so just or Age of Heroes, whatever it was called, was awesome.
Well, they sort of did this, or at least I guess the closest thing possible before they sunset the content in Season of Arrivals, where they're like, "Hey, guys, oh no, I'm saying build off that concept to bring this stuff back." Like,
right?
We can see there's like an itch, a demand for it. I mean, that's how you and I met, was jumping in and doing all of the old raids again to try to get caught up for the raid ring event. I think that there's definitely an itch for it. I think if you brought it back with more context around it and more stuff you could earn around it, I think it would get a lot more people in there, because we saw it happen just for people trying to get caught up on loot they had missed before.
Yeah, I like it, and I've been a proponent of this for a little while now. That I feel like the armor from raids, I like that you get the normal drops, but I feel like the first time you get it to drop, it should also unlock as a cosmetic for you.
Mhm.
Because I want to be able to wear my raid gear anywhere and not just like, oh, I have shitty stats, like I can only wear this in the raid or something like that. Like I want to be able to wear my deep stone armor anywhere. But I have gotten no good rolls on any of it. I've gotten like 60s at most.
Yeah, I got lucky and got a couple pieces that I worked into my normal gear set just so I could use the mod slots when I needed
Yeah.
them. But yeah, I agree. I mean, this will be coming with transmog, but they should have already been. They should have already had some kind of system in there for that.
I think that would be really good. But just I guess kind of to wrap up on this topic. I feel like we're starting to talk ourselves into circles here. I think the general consensus is we want more rewards for doing these. Like for me, the Dawning and Solstice were both positive steps. It's Solstice and Moments of Triumph. You earned so many fucking cosmetics. I earned several cool ghosts. The Shattered Traveler ghost is awesome.
Mhm.
The armor set for me was cool. I like some of the emblems you got. The raid emblem. I mean, I'm still wearing that sucker in game. There were a lot of cosmetics there. There were some shaders tied to it. You know, we got a couple shaders. We got some sparrows, some ships tied to each of those. And like we said with Dawning, you got so many old cosmetics just given to you, right? I want to see that for each of these events. Like I've mentioned, Guardian games would be a great time to bring back some of those Dawning things that we've never seen again. We've never gotten the Dawning cosmetics back. We've gotten a couple of the ghosts, like the Ladybug ghost, I think has come back. But I want to see those armor sets drop. I want to see those sparrows, those ships. There's some shaders tied to it. I want to see all that come back. I like it when an event has a legendary weapon tied to it. You know, we got Glaciocasm back in the Dawning, and that's actually fusions are in a rough place. But as far as fusions go, that's not a bad fusion.
I
It's a
mean,
really slick design.
I still get. I mean, I get killed by it pretty frequently in PvP.
I do
People.
too. I get killed by it quite often, especially in Iron Banner. I get drilled by it. I like how they usually do an auto rifle for Festival of the Lost. This last year, I don't think they had a new weapon, but there you could get random rolls on Braytic Werewolf and on Horror Story, which was cool. I like seeing that. I wonder if there's gonna. I guess there's not gonna be a legendary weapon for Guardian games because they probably would have told us by now.
Yeah, they also didn't tell us that Glaciocasm was coming, did they?
We did know Glaciocasm was coming. They showed us the concept art for it
Oh, yeah,
several
I
weeks ahead of
remember
time.
now. I
Mhm.
remember.
Charity
Yeah.
streams.
Yep.
Uh, so
Maybe they'll
I
sneak it in.
maybe they'll sneak it in. I think that adds a lot to it too. Having a unique legendary that you can only get from playing that event. I think that's a really cool idea that I'd like to see repeated, but only if there's only 3 or 4 seasonal events a year. Like maybe again, one a season. It seems to be that's how they like to close it out. Because like you said, it kind of draws those of us who are lapsed back in, an excuse for some of us to spend money that are really bad with our money. Those
Hey,
of us
wait a
who have
minute. Hey,
hordes of
wait a
bright.
minute. That was a comment on me, okay?
It's a comment on a lot of us. I like the seasonal events, but again, like if it's going to require too much rework on some of these, maybe just take them out of the game like you did Crimson Days. I think it was starting to feel a little overstuffed. I still think it feels a little overstuffed with Guardian games, Solstice, Moments of Triumph, Dawning, and Festival of the Lost. I think that's equates out to one per season, with Moments kind of being an overarching thing. But Solstice is usually so closely tied to Moments of Triumph. Who knows how they're going to handle that?
I like the concept of possibly reworking one a year if possible. I definitely
I
don't.
would prefer to keep Moments of Triumph over Solstice, personally. I like Solstice. That's probably my favorite event every year because so many of my friends who are lapsed come back, but I've done the aerial zone for 2 years now. I really don't want to do it again. It's hard as well, it's not hard, but it's annoying as hell to traverse. It's
Yep.
simply not fun.
Well, you're not good with jumping puzzles, so that makes
I am
sense.
good with jumping puzzles, actually. Thank you very much. I just don't like how you have to go so like you have to keep going up. It's not even a puzzle. You're having to jump straight up, and it's very annoying. It's time. Not a huge fan. Not a massive fan. People dip in and out. It's terrible matchmaking. It's only fun with friends. Dawning is something I can do on my own. I can go do on my own time. Festival of the Lost, I can pretty much load in reliably with anybody, and they're going to be doing it. They're not going to ditch as soon as they finish their objective. Yeah. Guardian games, you can explore and do at your own pace and whatnot. I like the addition of the class-specific strikes. I'd like to see class-specific Crucible too, like a 3v3v3 mode, maybe.
Nope. I'm good.
I think that'd be great.
I'm good on that because I do not want a fucking all hunter Crucible match. I mean, that's basically...
You already have that. It's called Trials of Osiris.
I was gonna say that's basically what it is right now. Yeah, take stasis out of it, and I'll be fine.
All right, so everyone, if you have any comments or hot takes on seasons, on seasonal events, seasonal challenges, the loot you get from them, the grind, the bounties, etc., please email us at towercasuals@gmail.com or hit me on Twitter to let me know exactly what you think. Be a part of the show. We're going to shift into our last thing for the night, which could be Lore Corner.
Yeah.
And this week's Lore Corner, this is one I almost picked this one for last week's guessing game with you and Joe. For the record, it got cut off. If you didn't read those show notes, last week's answer was Bombardiers.
I think that you purposefully spiked the encoder so that you could hide the fact that I actually guessed it.
You did guess it on your third guess. Let the record show Nerd Generalist did win.
Don't say that like that's some put down. You guessed it on your third guess. How many exotics are there? There are so many. I guessed it. That's an achievement. I'm going to clap for myself.
I'm glad I can't hear your clapping.
That's the excellent background noise reduction of Discord for
you. So this is Divinity. Calibrate reality, seek inevitability, embrace or embody divinity. Lisbon 13 looked back towards where they had left Yard Arm 4. Separating the team always felt wrong, but Rekina needed uninterrupted time to confer with the senior Sybil. And if the Vex detected their crash landing in the Black Garden, Yard Arm 4 would give them that time. You'll have to move quickly, the Sybil said to Rekina. Lisbon 13 shared her secret channel. Rekina trusted him. The Vanguard have discovered that our order persists, as Osiris predicted. They'll send a fire team after us then. And after any other cryptocrons that they learn of. But your path is more dangerous than most. The Circle has foreseen many fire teams following in your footsteps. You can find the knowledge the Order seeks at the tree. Can, not will. For the first time, Rekina sounded concerned. The Circle has had limited success in piercing the veil that surrounds the Black Garden, so the Order offers no certainties. They say that a certain group of Guardians will discover secrets about the origin of the Black Garden at the tree. The One Rhematic Circle foresees no reason why it will not be the Kentark 3. Nor can I, but there is another threat in the tapestry. Entwined with this one, the Vex or some fractal faction of them worship or honor a divinity there. The Black Heart, it was destroyed. Yes, but this is something different. An object, something like a sacred relic. It is important to the Vex for reasons we have not yet fathomed. The Circle has determined that it is dangerous. A Vex weapon? Perhaps. The Sybil sounded annoyed at the interruption. Rekina, the Circle concluded that it is a danger to you. To me. But then why send me on this mission? When the Circle dreamed of the object, you were beside it. All right. We'll see what fate we will find ourselves in. Sybil. Rekina paused a long while. I don't know that we'll see each other again. The veil around the Black Garden, the influence of the Vex, they make such matters difficult to know. I choose to believe we will meet again. Then I won't say goodbye, Rekina said and closed the channel. Rekina stood, eyes closed for a time. Lisbon 13 waited. Lisbon, when we find it, she said, opening her eyes, you should carry it. The object? This divinity? I can think of no one whom I'd trust more with it than you. So this is pretty clearly a reference to a fire team that is attempting to breach the garden, quite clearly. Um, I'm curious if this is a reference to something that's going to come around in the future. Maybe come back up with the Vaults of Glass, because the cryptochromes aren't really talked about in the game. This is kind of the first reference we have to them, and I'm not really sure. Like the Onomatic Circle, Onromantic. I don't really know how to pronounce that. It's very strange. What any of that means as well. But what do you think? What do you think about this?
I like that lore entry, and just as you were reading it, it makes me want to go back in and reread it a few times and kind of dive into some of the like subsequent lore around Garden specifically.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a section of the Destiny lore that I know I like comparatively little about.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to say how like excited I am that we're gonna get hopefully some more good Vex lore coming soon. Hopefully with Vault and all that stuff.
So I mean, we know that in the garden. So the Garden of Salvation armor tells the story of how Lisbon eventually will turn on Rekina and Yardarm. And each of the armor sets gives us a different perspective. The Hunter set specifically tells us the story from Lisbon's perspective. The Warlock is Rekina and Titan is Yardarm. This is our first reference to the darkness in a lot of ways. The Garden of Salvation lore is, because Lisbon embraces that. It's implied that he gets darkness powers. We don't know if that means stasis or another type of the darkness at this point. It's kind of crazy because Lisbon is able to see multitudes of the future and see what Yardarm is going to do, but he couldn't predict what Rekina would do. And Rekina always knew he was a little bit dark, but Lisbon didn't know.